Hussein. I'm part of Master Monkeys. We're very, very honored to have the All-Stars today with us. I'm not going to introduce them, you all know them. But I'm not trying to be the moderator. I don't know what that means. But basically, if you have questions or if no one has questions, I can fill out. But yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity for y'all, like, to ask whatever questions you have to these champions. They've been all around the world traveling, winning huge competitions, but they all came from this, different backgrounds, and also I think it's a great opportunity to learn from them, right? Other than moves, but learn about their stories and experiences. So yeah, who wants to get started with the first question? Yes.
What does it feel like to be a champion?
You know what it feels like to be a champion. You won a few.
You guys.
I mean, it's just a feeling of accomplishment and the hard work that you put in. It's a different way to feel rewarded for the work you put in. Especially if you're committed to a certain way of dancing, like if you're into the creative part and innovative part of developing a style and creating something that's dope to you. If you're able to win with something like that on a major world title event, like that's a huge feeling because you accomplished something with not something that's relatable to everybody. So to do that and commit to that and be able to come out on top in such tournaments is an amazing feeling. I think that's the biggest win. It's like to get the message across of what you represent. Even without winning, long as people, when you get recognized or you inspire somebody else to maybe imitate what you've done, that's the biggest win.
Yeah. What disciplines do you guys have outside of breaking that you feel contribute to your success as a dancer or as a person? Like, do you guys run? Like, just what other things do you do that help with breaking?
For me, the hardest part is when you travel. Like when I'm at home, it's easy for me to be disciplined, and so I would say like I feel I put more work when I'm outside because it's hard for us when we're traveling like 1 month, 2 months. It's hard to train, hard to find places. Sometimes with legs, sometimes this, So and I think that's the moment where you need to do something. So like for me, I need to work out for sure. Even if like let's say we finish the battle, I go party, I drink or I don't know what, In the end, I have always to come back to what I always do. It's like to work out, to stay in shape, even if I'm traveling, even if I don't know what. Other discipline I would say food. I'm not the best like eating food, but I'm not the worst. So I would say like I'm not eating, so I try to eat the best I can.
Yeah, me too. I don't really do anything other than like I break and then I work out a lot too. That's kind of been a core for me for like a few years now. So I work out for me like usually 5 times a week, and so it's pretty consistent with my training as well. And I have a personal trainer I work with a few times a week as well, and that is kind of divided up into strength training, calisthenics. I do a lot of like CrossFit and stuff too. That's the only other discipline, and then kind of similar to Zoo, I think it's important just the basics are the most important, like sleep, nutrition, enough rest in general. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I played a lot. I like playing sports. I play a lot of basketball. I run, I bike, I work out. So I do other things outside of breaking to maintain my abilities and the things I need to do, especially with the age that I'm getting to. I have to be able to perform, So yeah, I do a lot of things outside of breaking that help my breaking. I also like to shoot photography and do video. That's like a different form of creativity. So it helps me take a break from the constant movement of physical. It makes me think more and think of ways to innovate or come up with cool concepts for visual representation of what we do.
So also working out, I think those are very important. Working out is obviously helpful to me, but I love learning new styles. Like sometimes I get too burnt out from just breaking, especially if I'm like constantly just breaking to just breaks around the same people all the time. So I've dabbled into other styles and even like communities. So I've been training in like club recently. One of my good friends, she teaches at Miami, and house as well. That we have a decent house community, and it's nice to get outside of that bubble to learn and kind of apply yourself in a different way. And so coming back to breaking, then I'm like, oh, I can add all this new shit that I learned from this style, that style. And then I think another discipline for me would be journaling and meditation. I think for me, personally, it just helps me, kind of like process and reflect on just life, things in life and training too.
I would just add one thing, like you can try, the best thing you can try to find is like when discipline becomes fun. I will come back now to when Ray asked us like how you feel to be a champion. For me, in breaking, it's hard to be like, it's not a sport, it's not who was faster or who is stronger. So in the end of the day, even if you lose because of the opinion of another dancer, another human being, So that's why for me, a champion means when you enjoy what you are doing, when you enjoy the discipline, not like, man, I have to go to train again. Like people when they see me like working out and stuff, they think I want to prove something. No, I just go have fun. I'm just not feeling good and I'm going to feel good. So try to make this discipline, try to make it fun, and even if you are late, you can still do it. Like don't try to be, oh man, normally I said I'm gonna do it at 9, but now it's already 10. No, whatever, you just have to reach the level where you are having fun with anything you do. With breaking time, with the workout, with anything you do in your life, if you have fun with it, then for me you are already a winner.
Great, I think that's great. Awesome. Yeah, go ahead, and then we get to you.
All right, great. So with breaking going to the Olympics, as a competitor, what's your point of view with how they should judge breaking category?
I think they are doing the best, but in the end of the day, we're gonna stay the same. No judge because of our opinion, And everybody, like, if we just say like dynamic for me and him is completely different, That's why I say, for me, Olympics is a very important thing. I'm happy to come here because it gives us a good value, and in the end of the day, it's just another event.
Yeah, I think my kind of view on it is the exact same. I think the Olympics is an incredible opportunity. I think it'll open up a lot of doors, and it has been opening a lot of doors for a lot of people. Like for me, I want to see everyone eat. Like breaking's hard, and a lot of people for a long time you had to be at the top of the game to even earn a decent living, and now it's like more people have more opportunities, which is a great thing. In terms of judging, I kind of have the same philosophy. Like breaking is subjective at the end of the day. Like no matter what, there is subjectivity involved. It's not like other sports like basketball or whatever, where whoever scores more points wins. It's also not like other sports where, like you said, you're not the fastest, the strongest. It's not the person who's going to win, right? Sometimes it's just the person who has a good day. Sometimes in that moment they take the energy. Sometimes it's the person who is the fastest and the strongest, and it's just on that day that's what won. It's so different. There's so much subjectivity involved. Like you can't judge like vibe. Like there's no category that's vibe because it's not quantifiable, So I think breaking right now, I think like you said too, they're doing a good job and they're doing their best job. But for example, how do you quantify creativity? Like what one person determines as original and creative, someone else will be like, nah, this person did this a long time ago, or this is just a variation of this. So breaking at the end of the day is subjective. I think like they're doing their best, they've categorized it good enough. But like for example, for me, like I want to go to the Olympics, but I'm not looking at how they're judging because I'm also not going to adapt the way I dance to the system. We're just going to do our best. Like I've made it here doing my best. I'm going to keep doing that and keep elevating, pushing my style, what I want to do, and then hopefully that does well or wins or whatever.
I think that's the best approach because when it comes to judges, whether you're certified or not, you still have an opinion. Because you're certified and you're a bad judge, you're still a bad judge. And everybody, like there's 50% of the scene will agree with you and 50% will disagree with you no matter what. So you're a good judge to the winner and you're a bad judge to the loser. So no matter what, I think for me it's just about just being honest. And also the thing is that as long as the people that are involved in developing the format to judge in the Olympics, as long as they preserve some sort of essence of breaking and don't get too lost trying to please the masses or please the people in charge that are putting the money up. As long as we don't give our art to that, I'm cool with whatever they do, as long as they try to keep the original essence of that in the system somehow.
Awesome. Thank you.
As my like big brother say always, like you just have to keep it simple. Dance how you want, let them judge how you do. Focus on what you are doing, not in how you're gonna do. And if you lose, in the end of the day, it's just another event.
Thank you. Yeah.
Would you say that you see breaking as more of a sport or like an art form?
Both. I see it as both. Like,
The way you do it is art, the way your body is doing it is athletic.
I think the way we present it is like a sporting event. I think the way that we approach it and develop it is an artistic way.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if breaking is like very artistic and hard to quantify, how do you guys personally measure your own progress?
What? How do you measure your progress? Like if you're getting better or you're developing things that you were weak at. That's for me, that's how I measure my progress. Like if I know I had a weakness and that weakness becomes easy now, that means that I've developed more. So even if it's a simple thing as a chair freeze, if I couldn't do a chair freeze 10 months ago and I can do chair freeze on both hands, that means I've progressed. So
Yeah.
it's like measuring things on the things that you lack.
Yeah, I think it's like measuring things based on what you're working on. Like personally, like I think there are certain things that you can quantify. For example, like your body control, like he was saying, if there are certain weaknesses that become easier, or certain like positions you can catch now that before you couldn't catch. But it's also, I think, like the things you're actually working on. So for me personally, it's like I want to freestyle more, I want to dance more. If in competitions and when I'm practicing, I do feel like I'm doing that, I feel better in that regard. And when I watch, also for me, when I watch myself and I actually like am enjoying what I'm watching from from my perspective, then I know I'm kind of getting better. And it's also just a feeling. Like you can kind of feel when you're improving or not.
For me, the progress is not from how many new moves you got, and how less new moves take. Because I think everybody is easy to get new stuff, but it's hard to put your bad habits down. So this is how I do it.
so I think also on the mental side of things, so, if I'm stepping into a battle, like I feel more comfortable than I did like the last time I battled in a certain setting. Then that's how on the mental side.
I think that's a good point too, is like I think like you can get better physically and you can get better like mentally, and also just getting used to things. Like I found in the last, like I used to have really bad anxiety competing, but because I've done it so much more now, like when I step into a competition, I'm a lot more comfortable in that sphere, and that's improvement as well. It's not necessarily I've become a better, like I have more moves or anything. It's just because I'm more comfortable now, like a better part of me will also come out because I have more comfort in that space. The mental aspect, I think, is a really important.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. What do you guys do for recovery?
That's important.
I do, when I'm heavily training, I do like 3-week regimens where I do a heavy week of like 5 days going like strong workouts, breaking everything, and then the second week is a medium week. So I start declining on the training, it turns into like 4 days. Then the third week is my light week, which I do like 2 light sessions, and the rest of the time it's more like studying footage, prepping myself mentally. That way I can actually recover and feel the difference in what I've developed. So I do that usually around 2 months out before a tournament, if I'm really like focused on one tournament.
After the event?
Before the event,
Before. What about after?
same thing, you go back to that, rest, take a week off, yeah, and then you keep the cycle going.
Yeah, I think that's like something I still honestly struggle with, is like recovery and stuff. But for the most part, again, just kind of basics are some of the most important. If you're getting enough sleep, like sleep is probably one of the most important things. If you're not resting enough, like your body doesn't have that time to recover, mentally and physically. Like it does affect your mental too. Like if you're not sleeping enough, then like for me anyways, I don't want to go to practice sometimes because of that. Food, like what you eat, what you're putting into your body makes a big difference. And then in terms of actual like proactive recovery. For me, it's like I take cold showers pretty much every day. I'll do ice baths if I have like a really hard session. I have like a massage gun that I use pretty much every night. I have a ball and like a foam roller that I use pretty much every day after session. I usually have I have a mobility routine I do in the mornings, and then I'm usually always stretching just throughout the day. Like I don't really like push stretching, but I'll just kind of actively stretch throughout the day, and especially like after practice, before practice, during practice.
For me, like I'm happy, like I'm living in a city where the our inn, like a lake, is very cold. So I think we do every day cold bath, and this help a lot. Good food. It's not even good food, just not bad. That's the only thing. And for me, I will just say one thing: when you feel tired, recovery, take rest. And I think as a b-boy, our biggest problem is you feel guilty when you take rest. You're like, oh man, if I go to train today, maybe I have no move. And this, if you just think like this, you already don't take rest. So try to enjoy the rest. And as I said, my coach again say, rest is a training. So when you are resting, it's like already you are training. So try to enjoy the rest time too. Try to not feel guilty, or I need to do this, you know. So like try to push yourself. Like I think the hardest thing, question in breaking, is do I have to push or do I have to rest? Like even for me till today, I don't have the answer for this, you know. So I just think the moment if you say, okay, I'm gonna take rest, enjoy it. And if you say I'm gonna push, then push.
I think that's a really important point, because that's something I honestly struggled with too. I used to think like breaking, because it is so creative as well, that you don't need to rest, like you can always do something. And I think to a certain degree that can be true, but you are using your body. And your body does get tired, and you can overtrain. And if you overtrain, it doesn't only affect you physically and can lead to injuries, but it can affect you mentally as well. Like if you overtrain and you don't want to break, and that's happened to me a lot, where like I train so much and I'm like, why am I doing this? It's not fun. And then when you're going to practice, you're actually getting worse, because like your productivity for each practice is getting worse. So like I've had times where I'll train like 6 hours a day, and I feel like, okay, I'm not maybe doing such good quality, but at least I have the quantity. But I can get a better practice in 2 hours if I'm resting a lot more, and I enjoy those 2 hours than I can in like a 6-hour practice. So yeah, what he
enjoy the rest.
And yeah, what he said, enjoy the rest. Exactly. I used to feel guilty all the time, but like it's like you're resting anyway, so why are you feeling guilty? You're not resting your mind, right? Your mind is constantly anxious, right? So you have to kind of be able to fully commit, and that itself is a form of training too, I think, is to be able to put something aside and be like, okay, this is what I'm doing, I'm resting, and I'm not thinking about something else.
And like water, like hello water, I try to drink so much water like, every day. Because it helps, flush out everything. And like sleep is so important. And then what I like to do, what I learned from my trainer is like, sometimes you don't have to go 100% every single time. Like sometimes you can have sessions where it's just 80, or you can have light sessions, if you're really tired but you still want to move. So like, I'm like also learning how to train smart, because it's like, you know how to train hard, we get really pumped up for whatever reason, and then it's like we go into it, but like it's like you guys said, like another form of training, like just knowing the intensity of how you want a session that day. And same with working out too, but just listening to your body and like knowing when it is to push, because sometimes you're tired but you can definitely push and like you're not going to get injured, but sometimes it's a different kind of pain that you just have to like listen to, and you just have to stop. And so I'm learning how to differentiate, okay, what is like the feeling of pain when it's like almost injury, and then what is the feeling of pain when it's just like tired, sore. And so that's how I'm like, okay, maybe I can keep going, or maybe I need to stop.
Awesome, thank you. Someone hasn't asked yet. Yeah, go ahead.
So in battling, I feel like you have to have this balance of having a general plan, but also being in the moment so that you can create on the spot. So do y'all have like tips on kind of what you focus on when you're completely doing it?
I think the most important is just battling too much. And that's the good thing. When you're battling too much, then you start to understand. Like, for me, when like now I had like 3 years I didn't travel, and then when I start battling, I completely forget how to battle. Even I know in training I'm crazy. So I say try to battle more, then you will be enough of your moves, you will be enough of a lot of stuff you do, but your body will know what you have to do. And that's the moment you will start to leave like a place in your sets or whatever you do to just enjoy it, you know. So I would say just if you battle more, then you're gonna understand without even you find a way, your body gonna understand it automatically to know when to freestyle. Okay, now is the moment. Oh, this guy did something, I know it. So maybe, you know what, I don't do the plan anymore, I'm just gonna answer him, then I'm gonna enjoy this, you know. I would just say battle more.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to. Sorry, could you repeat your question one more time? It's a hard thing to. Sorry.
Yeah, that was kind of long. Sorry.
No.
So in battling, you have to balance like plan and freestyling. So like one time a b-boy like he told me focus on the music or something when you go. So I was asking if y'all have tips, like when you go in there, like what are you thinking about, or like.
Right. Yeah. It's a hard thing to balance. I think like what he says, the experience is really important because the more you battle, the more you start to understand all the little nuances, and the more like it means less to you because you've done it so many times, and so you're prepared going into it that like, oh, there's music playing, there's people shouting, oh, I'm thinking about the judges, like there's so much to kind of going on. But the more you gain experience, the more you can kind of drown out that noise, and then you can really just focus on your own stuff. It's a difficult balance. For me, I think you do whatever you want to do, right? Like, there is no perfect formula. There's it's the way you want to break. Some people do full sets and they still win battles. Some people completely freestyle and they win battles, right? Most people, I would say, are in the middle ground, myself included, where you have certain moves, right? But you're also kind of freestyling and trying to adjust to the music in between. For me, like specifically, if I'm thinking when I'm battling, I'm kind of going in and out. So like sometimes I'm in the music and I'm just listening to the music, and then when I feel like, okay, I kind of want to do a move now, then I kind of get into a move. But how to do that is like you do it when you're practicing too. So when you're practicing, you're listening to the music, and when I'm listening to the music, okay, I try a move, and then I go back to the music or whatever. Like everything you do in practice will translate to what you do in battle, right? Just at a more difficult scale for sure. But it just takes time. But yeah, I think experience is the most important thing. The more you do it, the more you'll understand, and the more you'll recognize mistakes and things you don't like and things you do like and things you're doing more and things you want to do less of. Like, yeah, experience is probably one of the most important things to kind of learn through that.
Definitely. I think also what helps, I mean, if you're freestyling and you're going to battle and you blank out a lot, I always say pick a set of moves that you have in mind that you already know you can do, and try to at least pick maybe 5 moves before you go into a battle. I mean, try it out before the battle in a cypher or something, and that way you have them kind of in your mind already. So when you hit that battle specifically, you have an idea of around 5 moves. You're probably gonna forget a few of them, but as long as you remember like 2 solid moves that you got, that's gonna help you kind of define your round, and it gives you some kind of movement to do. I think another thing that's really important is to actually learn how to see what your opponent is doing, so you know how to build up that momentum. So if you see them do, say for example, you have a windmill combo that is really good, and he does a windmill on you, then you're gonna come out with that windmill variation that he did to like take him out, right? So you have to also learn how to understand a battle, because there's also a conversation of movement. But that's, I think, today's breaking is not so much, but that's the base of battle. And I think if you learn how to battle like that at practice or just around people, you will learn how to understand a competition better. Even though you only have 3 rounds to prove a point, if you understand that what they're doing and what you have and your strengths are, then you know how to draw people's weaknesses more and attack their weaknesses through your craft. So it's a lot of balance too deep. It can't just be answered off of one question like that. You got to go more into it, because I think battling is a whole different skill set than just breaking.
The good thing about battling is like you don't get surprised anymore. You already had in blackout, you had it many times. Like, you know, when you have to change your pen, you had it many times. You start to get used to it. That's why I say like battling is one of the most important things. I battle in my training and it's completely different.
Thank you. Someone that hasn't asked yet. Yeah, go ahead.
What is like, I guess if you think back to like the first year you started breaking, like what are things that stick out to you in your memory, and like what is something you like wish you knew at that point, at that stage?
The first year, I mean, the first year I would say the funnest stuff was battling people because it was super pure. There was just a lot of innocence. Nobody knew anything. Everybody was learning off each other. And if somebody smoked you this weekend, the next time you saw him, you had the move that he beat you with the last weekend. So it was like a way to learn, and it was very, everything was new. So everything felt fresh, and you had to also go out there and define what was dope. Where today, everything's packaged already. You know what it takes to win a battle. If you top rock like this guy, if you do moves like this guy, if you transition like this guy, you take all those things, it's already there. Before we had to go and find all that. So that first year, to me, was beautiful. I loved it. It was a great experience, but everything was new.
I had a lot of bruises on my back from trying to learn moves at a young age. So I remember those. But I think I remember feeling very intimidated because I started when I was 7, and I started obviously as a lead girl, so it's like, not only is it like mostly guys, right, but it's like I'm like small and like really short and I'm young, so yeah, it was intimidating, but I remember like when I would be able to battle like with kids, like, or just people, like if I'm feeling it and like it's like I don't know how to describe that experience. It was really empowering, you know, like it's even like for example battling with B-girls, ciphering with B-girls, or just ciphering with energy that is very welcoming, or if it's not welcoming, maybe it's like you feel like you can challenge it. Like when I had those moments, it was like damn, like I feel like I'm unlocking new superpowers, like, and just so it's fun, and I'm at a point where I'm like I want to keep that joy within the discipline, like what you were saying, like finding how can I continue to have this much fun, but still push myself and be aware of the level that I'm at now. And so yeah, that's motivated. But I think what was the second part of your question?
Oh, just if there's something you wish you knew.
Oh, I wish I knew that it's okay to feel like how I was feeling, because I would forget that I was how many years younger than everybody, and a girl in a room full of people that maybe I can't fully relate to, for the most part. So, and then I wish I knew that I'm not supposed to get it perfect right now. I'm not supposed to have it right now. Like, good things take time. Like, progress takes time, and like that growth, need more patience with myself. But at the same time, I'm happy that I pushed myself, because I think even though it may have been frustrating and I was just really young trying to get like more and more progress, it helped me build a certain foundation at a young age really fast, and that helped me, I think, to realize. So I wouldn't change anything, but I wish I knew. I wish I just had a little more grace with myself.
I think this question is different from a person to a person, especially where you start with, Like I think you guys started in USA, Canada, it's completely different because you know everything. You have knowledge, From where I started, it was completely different. I started in Morocco, North Africa, and if I'm honest, I understand breaking after I did 7 years. I didn't understand it, but I just know, okay, this is this, and this, like what is the foundation, in my place, everything is different, So, and the first basics, as I say, for me, it's better you learn something good than to already have to create your own bad habits, because to change a habit is more harder than to get it right from the first time. So I would say I danced for 7 years, which I didn't understand what I'm doing. I was just enjoying the process and stuff. I remember I even just say, what? As long as you don't understand nothing, just get strong and get foundation. Don't try to create, because I didn't know what is creation. I didn't know, everything I do. Somebody tell me this guy did it 2000. I don't know. I never watched. I never, you know. So I would say if it come back in my place, I just wish we had like knowledge and stuff. Like for me, if just in this tour, because I trip with Rox, I trip with Ronnie and stuff. They told me that some stuff that they've been there, you know. So for me, it's very interesting, and it changed the way how I even think about breaking. It give it more value than I am like, oh, what I'm doing is not. It's a big thing. Like breaking it changed a lot of previous stuff, and that's why I think I have the good feeling of it, because I'm happy with what I'm doing, no matter what, no matter losing and everything. But I just wish if I had like if I understand it when I just started, you know. So I think that's
for me, like the first year of breaking was like the first few years of breaking, like Rox said, is so pure. You know, like you don't think about like, oh, maybe this is something I could do, and you don't think about competitions or anything. From my personal experience, it was just like you were dancing with your friends and it was fun. In terms of like what I wish I knew, honestly, I don't know. Like I don't think there's anything I could really tell myself, because like as cheesy as it sounds, I think you learn as you go and you make mistakes as you go, but that kind of shapes you as a dancer and as a person. So like I wouldn't tell myself anything from that. I also think if I did, like probably wouldn't listen anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah.
Yeah, I say just believe it. I was telling myself then to believe in myself, because I was a very timid kid. So I was more shy, just be like a little bit more like, open and be more, you know, just believing in what you're doing, because doubting myself a lot throughout the years really held me back a lot. When the opportunities were already being there for me, I kept holding myself back because I didn't really believe that I could do what I was doing.
And like for me, that's the same thing. I think last time we did a Q&A, someone asked kind of a similar question, but they said like, what would you tell like your 16-year-old self? And I said the same thing. For me, it was like to believe in yourself, because I have struggled with the same thing, that I didn't believe in myself for so long. But it's the exact same thing I just said. Is like, even if I told myself that 16-year-old self, you still wouldn't believe in yourself, you know. But he learned to believe in himself as he went on. So like,
but you know, like sometimes don't believe too much in yourself. I was thinking, okay, I'm the best. Yeah,
Damn.
I went PC1 2012. I danced for 4 years, and I was sure I'm gonna shock the world.
yeah.
And then I lose first round with 5-0.
And he thought he was French, and you wore the skinniest pants, the tightest shirt.
Love it.
So it's like you need to know when when you have to trust yourself, and when you better you don't trust yourself.
Just be honest with yourself.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So when you're preparing for a high level competition, what's one thing that you all feel like helped you prepare for it? Like feel prepared, like feel ready. Like what does that look like, and what is that for each of you? So it could be like drilling.
For me, I would say stamina, man. Stamina. I always say like me and my Moroccan friend, we always say like stamina, you know, because whatever you imagine, the moment your body is not ready, it's hard to make your creative side open. But when your mind is believing in your body, then you can be creative. You have no problem. You know you can do whatever, and you know you can go. However, you know, I think a lot of b-boys, like they are really artists, but every time them stamina, like they can't anymore, and then you see a very big flop, and then you are like, what? This guy, I know him. Okay, where is the art now? You know. So I think the most important I do is try to make my body ready for whatever. But the moment I go to the battle, I say, okay, now forget the athletic thing. Now it's time to enjoy your time and have fun. Whatever happened, because my body is ready for it. So I think.
Yeah, for me it's actually the same thing. The stamina thing is huge, because it's not just physical conditioning, it's mental conditioning.
Yeah.
Because when you push yourself, like for me, a lot of it comes from, yes, I train like rounds and stuff in breaking, but I do a lot of like workouts, like CrossFit kind of hit style workouts, and like those to me are harder than breaking a lot of the times. But when you're in that position, like you have to push yourself further. Like you can just be like, if you're doing ropes or something, you can be really lazy, but you have to mentally go harder and kind of push yourself and kind of elevate that. And I distinctly remember being in a lot of events. I feel like I've won just because my stamina was better. I don't think I was the better dancer. I don't think I was the better b-boy. I don't think I was the better breaker. It's just my stamina was better a lot of the times. And I distinctly remember one of the last events, the 7 to Smoke we did in France. Like that was, the conditions were horrible because it was so hot in there. And I remember some people tapped out. Like it was a 7 to Smoke.
Oh, I remember.
Some people left. They were just like, I can't do this. And I remember in that battle, I won like 4 or 5 in a row. And I remember being in like round 3 or 4 and I was really tired. But I just remember thinking like, wait, I've been here a million times. Like in my training, I've done this a million times. And that is a physical push, but it was a mental push more than anything. Because I got to that point of being like, I could give up, but I've also been here a million times. So like, I can just keep going, whatever, you know? So for me, stamina was like a big thing.
When I'm in shape, when the stamina isn't there, when you have stamina, for me it comes down to mental. It's all mental. You really have to like feel confident in what you're doing and believe in what you're doing. I know it's hard sometimes, but not in a way where you're gonna be arrogant, but in a way where you're gonna feel like fresh. Like you're gonna, like, you know, breaking's about being dope and looking stylish and having this like presence and presentation where you're gonna leave a mark. And that to me is the preparation I do when I have the stamina, right? That part, the preparation of the physical side is the most important, but the mental side, once you have that, is above that. Because when I'm on stage, if I have the stamina, I want to look doper than you. I want to look fresher. I want to make sure that my style stands out more than yours. And mentally, you have to kind of be ready to believe that and go in there knowing that you're able to deliver that style of yours at the highest level. So for me, it's a lot of it's really mentally believing and being in that moment.
Yeah, I think because we train all the time, and so because that's become such a consistent thing. For me, it's mental too. Like when I can visualize myself there and feel really good and really confident, that's the one thing that I need. Yeah, especially because going into like big competitions or battles, like I'm gonna prepare myself like 3 months, more than 3 months before. So it's like physically I know I'll be good, and so learning how to trust myself mentally is more of the battle for me personally.
Awesome, thank you. Decide. Yeah, go ahead.
This might be a long question and answer. So individually, what do you think is your individual purpose or ability that makes your dance unique? And then how do you come to realize that that's your uniqueness that will make whatever you do new to the scene?
What do you think makes your dance unique? Like, what do you think is your
And how do you arrive at that conclusion?
I think it's your story. Your story and how much you are happy with it and how much you don't care. Like, I think a lot of dancers, the biggest problem is the win or the lose. But for me, how many battles did we do? 1,000. How many you can win? Who are you? Like, it's not boxing. We do three fights a year if you are super active. You know, for us, we dance a lot. So I would say what makes your style is your story. From where you come, with who you train, with who you are close to. And what makes you like happy with it is how you appreciate everything, you know? I think it's just the moment you start to change your style, and this stuff is just from the ego of losing and this kind of stuff. So if you appreciate your style and you are like, okay, that's my style, that's my story, you know? So I wanna respect it and I wanna show it even if I lose. This is a hard thing. So if you are in the place where you are happy with everything you do and happy how you represent your style, I think you don't care anymore.
Yeah, I think like honestly for me it's very similar as well. I think people ask this question a lot, like, oh, what do you think is like your style? How do you define your style? I feel like it is just your story. It's like, and the story involves is like your environment. Like my style is very much an accumulation of the people I grew up around. Their influence of their dance and how they approach it is on my influence, the way I thought and the way I started approaching it, but that also changed over time based on my preferences, what I like and the way I live my life and the things that I like. And it's like your style is constantly changing and adapting. So I don't think it's necessarily like definable in terms of like, oh, I'm good at this, I'm bad at this. Like, yes, to a certain degree, but I do think it's just your story. It's like the things you like, it's the things you work on, it's the environment you're growing around, it's the people you're around. It's like, as cheesy as that sounds, like dance is expression. So you are expressing yourself, you're expressing your story, and like that is constantly changing. So I feel like it's like, yeah, I think if you think too much of it too, then it's like you're trying too hard almost. I think the thing about style is it comes naturally because you live life and you just like, it becomes your style. Like your life becomes your style. Whatever you do becomes your style. The things you like, your confidence, your lack of confidence, whatever it is, it all shapes who you are and your style. So I don't think there's necessarily like, for me now, I don't like to define it. You know, it's just like you said, it's your story, it's who you are.
Yeah, you're a product of your environment most of the time. Like the style that we develop usually comes from either your generation, the area you grew up in, your inspirations, the people that maybe mentored you. So for me, my style basically is a representation of the Bay Area in the 90s and also the East Coast influence from Roxrite and the foundation and flow of breaking. To say define it or when a moment when I realized that maybe this is my style, I think overthinking it for a lot of younger people, when you try to think too hard about a style that you want to be or that you're trying to reach, I think you already get lost when you do that. I think you have to just uncover everything as you move. You have to just, do the things that you like, and with the things that you like, you're going to develop certain habits, certain techniques, and those techniques and things are going to help you develop your style. I think once you're aware of that and you start to realize what you're actually doing, that's when you're more conscious of what type of style you're utilizing and the styles that influence your style, right? But to say that you find the moment, I say that comes as you grow, because for me, when I think of a style that I was doing in the 90s, and I look at it now, I'm like, well, like, what was I thinking then, and those times I didn't think I was being original. But then when I go back, I'm like, oh, damn, people weren't actually doing that, right? So, and even now when you think now or see, maybe I see something from like 5 years ago, I'm like, oh, this guy already had done that. I didn't see him do that before. So it's like, you kind of get checked on your style as well. So I think most of the time it's just about just growing with the dance and exploring. You'll eventually fall into the things that you appreciate. And once you get comfortable with those things, then your style will start to blossom and really stand out, because you're the most comfortable knowing that you're doing what you know how to do at the highest level and at the best level that you can do it at. So I think that's really when you find your style, when you really just get comfortable with yourself and be okay with the way you move.
Like, I think for me, I'm still discovering who I am as a dancer, as a breaker. And sometimes I feel good doing this, and sometimes I feel good doing this. But sometimes, like, I'm around breakers where style is so natural to them, but for whatever reason, like, they probably have less limiting beliefs, about themselves or their potential or their creativity and their imagination. And then for me, I think growing up in a more structured environment, more disciplined, it was like the creativity felt almost blocked. So I think as I got to get comfortable with myself and confident with myself as a human first, it kind of like started bleeding into my dance. And so, but it's patience too. Like, I don't think it should be rushed either. And like, I'm happy to be on this journey, because like, if I felt like I was already there, of like, this is my style now, and I didn't allow a constant evolution, I feel like it would be a little more boring, I like the challenge of like, yeah, there's more that I can play with. And I'm like, dang, like, I kind of feel like doing this is a little different, But there's like so much more. There's so many different essences within breaking from different places around the world that it's like, dang, they do this move that way, or they do this move that way. And so, yeah. And then starting, when I learned the form and essence of my lineage from where I'm from or where I'm living, it helped me see like, oh dang, like there's so many different ways to just do this dance. And like this community was known for this essence, or this one was known for that. And so it helped me start to form mine, but then there's so many options, and it's also not something like you were saying, like not something that I don't think it should be like you're thinking about it. It's more what feels natural.
It's good to respect the element of breaking, but it's good to respect the touch that you have, So I know it's gonna look weird for a lot of people, but in the end of the day, it's you. Like nobody tell you no, don't work like this or don't talk like this. That's you, you know. So that's why, like as I say, for me, from where I come, it was bad that I didn't understand this, but it was good that nobody told me no, this is breaking or this is breaking, you know. So I grew up like free. So I just say like respect the element of breaking, but put your touch in it.
So my question is a little bit follow up is like there are sometimes other people hear me will notice something about my dance like which I did not notice about it myself. So I find that surprising. Do you find that like you have gotten that kind of feedback before and do you find those feedback helpful? Like other people maybe they see you and you pick up something that you yourself are not quite aware.
When I started, we had this a lot, and even till now, I would say like, listen. If it works for you, take it. If it doesn't work, don't take it. That's all.
Yeah,
Maybe they are right sometimes, but maybe sometimes they are not right. That's all.
I think that's exactly what it is. Is like be open-minded. Like no one's perfect. Like no one's the best. No one's like there's always room for improvement. That's what I believe. So you can be open to people's opinions, but you can also it's your dance. It's your breaking. It's your
It's how
style.
you want to see yourself.
Exactly. You can decide if you want to. If you hear it and you're like, oh, I never noticed that. Maybe I'll try to work on it. Or I never noticed that, but that's something I like. Then keep it. If it's something you thought like, oh, maybe I could work on that and want to work on that, then work on it. It's totally up to you.
Yeah, you gotta be open for that. Yeah, I think what they said is perfect. It's like if they, you know, when you hear somebody critique what you're doing or maybe point certain things out, it happens all the time. I mean, I get throughout all my years, it's always been the same thing. People constantly have an opinion about the way I move, and it's like for me, it's just more about like, okay, maybe I'll incorporate this or, you know, no, I don't like that. I don't connect with that. It's always been about what I connect with the most and I'm related to the most. Like if there's something that I feel like, damn, I do like that, and maybe I do gotta like level up on it. And maybe he can help me with it. I ask him back questions, you know. But if they can't give you feedback on what they're talking about, then it's also kind of counterproductive, you know. Because if they are critiquing you on something that maybe can help you, then they should be able to show you it. Because then maybe they lacked that at one point, you know. So for me, I go off of reference and experience.
And one last question. Just want to be mindful of the time. Y'all want to battle for it? No, just kidding. We have 4 people want to ask a question.
Go.
Oh, can you keep going? All right, we do those 4, right?
Yeah.
Damn, I appreciate the time. Thank you. All right, Mike, you having a go ahead.
What was your very first move that you ever learned?
And maybe just one person answer, and then that way we do it all 4. It's 4 people, 4 questions. Let's do this.
My first move, flat.
What?
Flat.
Flat.
Flare?
Flat.
Flare.
Yes.
Flag.
It was flare.
Yeah.
Yeah, flare.
True?
A flare?
Flare. Flare.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm gonna keep it short. What's the status of the B-girl scene, and you as a dancer, what can you do to create that inclusivity in your scene?
Maybe I should answer. I just like connecting with more videos because I think we're almost creating our own. I feel like we're almost forming our own foundation. Like our bodies are different, right? So it's just like we are learning the same basics, but the way that we do certain moves, especially power, a lot of the times people don't know how to teach us how to learn the power moves. Because it's like, I'll be offered the same tip over and over and over and over. But it's like, no, like if I just do this other thing to compensate for the difference in weight that we have, you know, in our bodies and our physique, that actually helped me get the move. But it was a different way of doing it than how we really do it. So I think gaining like everybody, B-boys and B-girls, gaining an understanding that sometimes we have to learn things differently. And including a mental standpoint too, you know, because naturally, girls, we are a little more sensitive. We have our periods, like all these things have to factor in. And so there has to be an awareness on both sides, you know, the differences, and not just kind of have like the same mentality and approach in terms of teaching and welcoming, you know, new members of the scene. But you know, this is all happening naturally, and I think if there's more representation and there's more of our voices being represented, or voices being heard. As long as there's that emphasis, it's just going to keep planting seeds of like, let's be more inclusive, or let's become more aware, or let's be more welcoming. But yeah, it just takes an awareness, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, the two last, yeah, go ahead.
What does competition day look like for you? Like, what's your preparation leading up to the whole year before? Like, maybe when you wake up, or you do prep,
What breakfast do you take?
For me now, the biggest thing that has kind of changed and helped me is I treat it like any other day, honestly. Like, because I think like when I think too much of like, oh, it's competition day, it's game day, like it's mentally draining. So I kind of treat it like any other day, except like watching more, I guess, what I eat and how I sleep. Like, I try to probably be in bed a little bit earlier so I get a really good night of sleep. I'm more open to like sleeping in a bit more, whereas usually on a normal day I would get up earlier, but on a competition day I would sleep in more so I feel fully rested. I eat but not eat too much, so that I don't feel heavy, but I do have the fuel in my body to like get going. And then when I'm actually at the event, again, my method now is to treat it like any other day. So I really am not thinking too much about like, oh, I'm competing now or whatever. Even when I'm actually battling now, I approach anything just like, this is just me dancing, it's another day dancing. That's what works for me personally. I have like a couple rituals that I do, but again, at the same time, like I often do this, but not always, because I don't also want to rely on a ritual. Then if you don't do that, then you know, you're gonna get stressed, like, oh, I didn't do this, so like I'm gonna lose the competition. Yeah, for me, like I journal, like journaling is a big thing. So anything that helps me take me away from the competition. So like I do everything that I want to do that isn't dancing. So oftentimes, like especially if we're traveling, I'll like go shopping, or like I love coffee shops, so I'll go to a coffee shop and I'll just sit, I'll have like a piece of like pastry and like a coffee, and I'll like journal and just like, for me, gratitude is a big thing. So I'll often talk about like, wow, like I'm in a different country, and like reminding myself that like this is what I've always wanted and that I'm here, and kind of being grateful for it, so that it also puts me in a state of like, I don't really care if I win or lose, because like I get to do this and I get to live this kind of thing. And then so I basically take myself the furthest away that I can from the competition until I have to be there and actually compete.
Can I add just one thing? I think if you had a perfect training, every time you have a perfect training, try to remember how was the day. And you will find that they were similar. You will find that you are doing something similar, that's why you had that this day was nice. And I try to treat the battle the same as this day. And I think it's from everybody, it's different.
Last question of the day.
Congrats to your baby.
Yeah. Thank you. That's the.
That's it.
Oh, that's let's get it run out a little